one of the very important point that you raise is using treasury bonds to pay school fees. There are so many times I wish many parents could understand that they can use treasury bonds to pay school fees. That way, even how you invest and which bonds you end up buying, 1 or 2 or 3 treasury bonds, they align their coupon payments on when school fees comes to when it comes due. Now, as a parent, I know 3 things. The first one, you talked about January. We have to pay, if your child is in normal Ugandan traditional school, we have to pay school fees in Jan. We have to pay school fees in either end of May or early June. We have to pay school fees in either end of August or early September. One of those 3, right? So that means with the right planning, you just need like bonds, old 1 or 2 bonds that pay you in Jan to cover the first term, that pay you in May to cover the second term, and pay you either in August or September to cover the third term. And that's the plan. That's simply the plan. Now, when you look at it that way, then you take a step back, because now that's the target from a cash flow. Then you take a step back and understand that bonds, treasury bonds, in their due case, they pay twice a year. That if I buy right now a 20-year bond, the 2043, when we talk about bonds, we talk about them in the year they mature. If I buy a 20-year bond, the 2043 bond, it pays in Jan and July. So if somehow, somewhere, someone says, I want to be paid in Jan because of the school fees, that will be one of the bonds they would want to buy. Very, very good bond. Either that one, the 2043, or the 2039. Now, I would always suggest for people to go with the 2043 because it will make you more money than the 2039. But remember, it pays in Jan and July. July is a dead month from a school fees planning, but Jan is a perfect month. So there, you say 2043, it will be the bond that will always cover our first term school fees. Then we come to second term. Second term it starts either towards end of May or early June, depending on when the first term started. So what that means is, yes, please record. What that means, for the May and June, you need to be paid either end of May or early June. Right now, there are 2 types of bond you can buy that pay you in May that pay you in May, actually. There is the recent, like I said, when I talk bonds, people should pay attention to when it matures, it's what it means. There is the 2035 bond. It matures in 2035. It's a 10-year bond. It pays in May and November. So November is a dead month, but it pays you in May. Then there is the 2037 bond. It's the current 10-year bond that Bank of Uganda is selling. It pays also in May and in November. Of those 2 bonds, I would go for the 2037. It will make more money than the 2035. So what that means is, when I go to the bank now, I'm a targeted worker. I know what I'm trying to do. I am not going to first ask them to guide me. I can guide myself because I know. I engaged Kakanda. He came up with a perfect plan for me to address my needs. So far, the 2043 bond is what I use for the January school fees. Straightforward. The 2037 bond is what I will use for May school fees, because it pays in the last week of May and then the last week of November. So that means every time it pays in May and November, in May, that's the money I used to pay the second term of school fees for planning purposes at least. Then we go to third term. Third term either starts either towards the end of either early September or late August. So that means you either need a bond that pays you in August or that pays you in September. Now there are two options that someone might consider. You can go for, there is the 25-year bond, and that's the reason why I always ask people what's your age, to see if I suggest a 25-year bond, they're not going to say, oh wait Alex, I'm 55, 25 years seems too far. But when I'm talking to a 32-year-old and a 38-year-old or a 35-year-old, 25 is not too far, you know. So the 25-year bond pays in Feb and August. However, there is one limitation with the 25-year bond. It pays in early August. So if school starts towards the end of August or early September, you will have to have the discipline to keep that money for close to 3 months, for close to 3 weeks, which is possible, especially as a parent. That's okay. So the 25-year bond is the first option. The second option, we are in 2026. Bank of Uganda is introducing a new 20-year bond that will mature in 2046. That bond is coming in September, around September 13th, I believe. That bond will pay in March and September. So that's another bond that can help you cover the school fees of third term. So realistically speaking, if you wake up and say, I have this money, I'm trying to make sure I get paid almost every time I'm to get school fees are to be due, you need 3 bonds. You need the 2043 bond that pays in Jan. You need the 2037 that pays in May. You need the 2050 bond that pays in August. Those 3 bonds, depending on the amount you pay for school fees, then they can guide you on how much you can allocate to each and every bond. And that way you are sure every single time they pay you in those months, that money is going to go to school fees. The other months, for example, July, November, Feb, all those will be reinvestment positions. But at least the school fees months have been covered by this planning that you have to do. So that's what I would do. There are 3 extremely important bonds. It's not just one. The Jan one, 2043 or 2039, I'll go for 2043. The second term, which pays in May, I'll go for 2037, no doubt whatsoever. For third term, I'll go with the 2050 bond that pays in August. I'll get the money early, but I can wait for 2 to 3 weeks for me to pay the school fees. Or I can even pay the school fees a little bit earlier to the school, and that way they do not need to call me to say that where is the school fees. So that for me would be the plan.